Omajnana-timandasya jnana shlakya sakshamritam yena tasmai shri gurave namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswata Devi Gaurvani Vacharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Desatarane Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Recording in progress.
Today we will discuss Canto 10, Chapter 23, from verse 8 onwards. So we heard last time that the coward boys, they just asked and begged for food. So they said, "You are Dharma Vittama. Please, Dharma Vittama means the best knowledge of Dharma. Please give some food." And this verse 8 shows the great learning of these coward boys. Dikshaya pasu samstaya sautramanya sasattama anyatra dikshita syapi nanam asnam idushati. Translation: except during the interval between the initiation of the performer of a sacrifice and the actual sacrifice of the animal, or most pure Brahmins, it is not contaminating for even the initiated to partake of food, at least in sacrifices other than the Sautramani. Purport: the coward boys anticipated the possible objection from the Brahmins that they could not give the boys any food because they themselves had not yet eaten, and that a priest initiated to perform a sacrifice should not eat. Therefore, the boys humbly informed the Brahmins about various technicalities of ritualistic sacrifice. The coward boys were not unaware of the formalities of Vedic culture, but their real intention was to simply to render loving service to Lord Krishna. So in Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada says, although the companions of Lord Krishna and Balaram were simple coward boys, they were in a position to dictate even to the high-class Brahmins engaged in the Vedic rituals of sacrifice. But the Smarta Brahmins, who were simply sacrificial-minded, could not understand the dictation of the transcendental devotees of the Lord. They could not even appreciate the begging of the Supreme Lord, Krishna and Balaram. They did not care for them, and they refused to speak to the boys. Despite being highly elevated in the knowledge of Vedic sacrificial rites, all such non-devotee Brahmins, although they think of themselves as very highly elevated, are ignorant, foolish persons. All their activities are childish because they do not know the purpose of the Vedas, as it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita to understand Krishna, Bhagavad Gita 15:15. So what lesson can we learn here? Don't judge from the externals. A simple devotee can be much more advanced. They heard all the requests from Krishna and Balaram, these ritualistic Brahmins, and they did not care for them. They did not care for Krishna and Balaram. They even did not speak to the boys. So text 9 gives us an analogy. So, the Brahmins heard this supplication from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and yet refused to pay heed. Indeed, they were full of petty desires and entangled in elaborate rituals, though presuming themselves advanced in Vedic learning. So can someone read the purport, please?
Can I, Maharaj?
Please, go.
Or Maharaj Prabhu, you go by sequence, alphabetically? Okay.
No problem.
These childish Brahmanas were full of petty desires, such as the desire to attain material heaven, and therefore they could not recognize the golden transcendental opportunity offered them by the arrival of Krishna's personal boyfriends. Presently, throughout the world, people are madly pursuing material advancement and thus cannot hear the message of the Supreme Lord Krishna that is being broadcast through the missionary activities of the Krishna consciousness movement. Times have hardly changed. The proud materialistic priests are still prevalent on the earth. Thank you, ma'am.
So on this subject, Srila Prabhupada speaks in the purport of 6.3.25. I'll read a verse and then someone can read the purport. Because they are bewildered by the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Valka and Jaimini and other compilers of the religious scriptures cannot know the secret, confidential religious systems of the 12 Mahajans. They cannot understand the transcendental value of performing devotional service or chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, because their minds are attracted to the ritualistic ceremonies mentioned in the Vedas, especially the Yajurveda, Samaveda, Rigveda. Their intelligence has become dull. Thus they are busy collecting the ingredients for ritualistic ceremonies that yield only temporary benefits, such as elevation to Svargaloka for material happiness. They are not attracted to the Sankirtan movement. Instead, they are interested in Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So here we have the purport. So if someone can read the purport.
Yes, Maharaj.
Please.
Since one may easily achieve the highest success by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one may ask why there are so many Vedic ritualistic ceremonies and why people are attracted to them. This verse answers that question. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 15.15, Vedesha Sarve Rahameva Vedya. The real purpose of studying the Vedas is to approach the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Unfortunately, unintelligent people, bewildered by the grandeur of Vedic yagyas, want to see gorgeous sacrifices performed. They want Vedic mantras chanted and huge amounts of money spent for such ceremonies. Sometimes we have to observe the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies to please such unintelligent men. Recently, when we established a large Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan, we were obliged to have Vedic ceremonies enacted by Brahmanas because the inhabitants of Vrindavan, especially the smart Brahmanas, would not accept Europeans and Americans as bona fide Brahmanas. Thus, we had to engage Brahmanas to perform costly yagyas. I'm lost, Maharaj. In spite of these yagyas, the members of our society performed Sankirtana loudly with mridangas, and I considered the Sankirtana more important than the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Both the ceremonies and the Sankirtan were going on simultaneously. The ceremonies were meant for persons interested in Vedic rituals for elevation to heavenly planets. Jadi Krita Matir Madhu Pushpitayam. Whereas Sankirtana was meant for pure devotees interested in pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We would simply have performed Sankirtana, but then inhabitants of Vrindavana would not have taken the installation ceremony seriously. As explained here, the Vedic performances are meant for those whose intelligence has been dulled by the flowery language of the Vedas, which describe fruitive activities intended to elevate one to the higher planets.
Yeah, there is one paragraph more.
Especially in this age of Kali, Sankirtana alone is sufficient. If the members of our temple in different parts of the world simply continue Sankirtana before the deity, especially before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they will remain perfect. There is no need of any other performances. Nevertheless, to keep oneself clean in habits and mind, deity worship and other regulative principles are required. Srila Jiva Goswami says that although Sankirtana is sufficient for the perfection of life, the Archana or worship of the deity in the temple must continue in order that the devotees may stay clean and pure. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur therefore recommended that one follow both processes simultaneously. We strictly follow his principle of performing deity worship and Sankirtana along parallel lines. This we should continue.
So when Srila Prabhupada did the installation of the Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan, he had the Smarta Brahmins to come and perform 11 sacrifices. And at the same time our devotees were chanting the holy names. He said that these sacrifices were for the people interested in going to heaven through pious activities, that Vedic rituals. But the Sankirtan was meant for pure devotees interested in pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The ritualistic sacrifices is a show, but substance is chanting the holy names. Srila Prabhupada said if he would only have performed kirtan, then the temple of Vrindavan would not have been taken seriously. Sankirtan is sufficient, but we worship the deity to keep ourselves clean in body and mind. So there is a commentary on this verse by Sridhar Swami. Sridhar Swami says, he explains that there is an Ayurvedic medicine to treat fever, and that is called Trikatu. 3 bitter things, Neem, Kalmik and Shirata. If the doctor does not know about the higher one, Amrita Jivani, that's a higher medicine, then he will give you these 3 bitter medicines. That so it's like karma, jnana and yoga. That are the 3 bitter medicines. But the holy name is the medicines that revives the dead person, called Amrita Jivani. So that's an analogy by Sridhar Swami. And now we will read the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So can someone read the commentary on the screen?
Can I, Maharaj?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Prem Bhakti Mataji, you want to read?
Yes, Mataji, if it's okay, because
Sure.
thank you, Mataji. Though the Brahmanas were knowledgeable of scripture, why did they not respect Krishna and Balaram? This verse answers, they actually did not know scripture. Rather, they were ignorant in learning and imparting scripture, and therefore they are criticized with anger for 2.5 verses. Having only aspirations for insignificant heavenly planets, they thought themselves learned, Riddhu, but actually they were only old, Riddhu.
So Srila Prabhupada many times uses the word in English, rascal, a rascal. So, but what is the definition of a rascal? That Guruchan said the definition of a rascal is doing something but not knowing why. That is a fool, that is a rascal. So in the next 2.5 verses, Sukadev Goswami is going to criticize the Brahmins. Let's see. Text 10. Although the ingredients of sacrificial performance, the place, time, particular paraphernalia, mantras, rituals, priests, fires, demigods, performer, offering, and the as yet unseen beneficial results are all simply aspects of his opulences. The Brahmins saw Lord Krishna as an ordinary human, because of their perverted intelligence. They fail to recognize that He is the supreme absolute truth, the directly manifest personality of Godhead, whom the material senses cannot ordinarily perceive. Thus bewildered by their false identification with the mortal body, they did not show improper respect. Someone can read the small purport, please.
Ananga Mohini Madam. Are you there?
The ritualistic Brahmanas could not understand why the sacrificial food should be offered to Lord Krishna, whom they considered an ordinary human being. Just a person with rose-coloured glasses sees the entire world as rose-coloured. A conditioned soul with mundane vision sees even God himself as mundane and thus loses the opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead.
Thank you. So that was text 11, right? Yeah. So there is an analogy by Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. He says, if you are going to plant, then sometimes the seed lands on the fertile area, and sometimes on a stone, and sometimes in other places on the water. So these Brahmanas are compared to sowing the seed on a stone, and the Brahman's wife will be the fertile land. So what attracts Krishna to the field of our heart? That's a question from Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. So someone has a comment, what attracts Krishna to the field of our heart? Any comment?
Maharaj, Lord Chaitanya tells Sanatana Goswami that it is humility alone that attracts Krishna.
Humility. That's one point.
Our sincerity.
Sincerity.
Mercy towards all the living entities.
Please.
Maharaj, mercy towards the other living entities.
Mercy to all living entities. Yeah.
Unalloyed devotion.
Unalloyed devotion. Yes. Other point? I can share with you what Bhaktivedanta Prabhu said. And he said also humility. That's the first thing. But all the other points mentioned, sincerity, unalloyed devotion, mercy to all living entities, are all highly qualities of devotees. But he mentioned also a burning desire for Krishna. This laulyam, this creed. So we have heard before that our heart is like a lotus, and Krishna is like a lotus flower. So we need to make our ground fertile. So what is the first thing that you do when you prepare to plant a seed? You prepare the ground. But that means taking out all material desires, the weeds. After you plant, the weeds start growing, and then you need to take the weeds out. So the Brahmins, the field of their hearts was like a stone, and the creeper of devotional service did not grow. That was his comment. Now we have text 12. When the Brahmins failed to reply, even with a simple yes or no, O chastiser of the enemy, Parikshit, the coward boys returned disappointed to Krishna and Balaram and reported this to them. So the next one to read can read Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on this verse.
Brahmanas did not say yes. How can we give to the cowherd boys before the Brahmanas have eaten? The Brahmanas did not say no. They did not refuse the proposal that after the Brahmanas had eaten, they would give the remnants to the cowherd boys. Seeing that Parikshit Maharaj was becoming angry on hearing this, Sukdev Goswami said, O subduer of enemies, Parantapa, if you had been there, even though they were the best of the Brahmanas, you would have punished them like enemies.
So, O Parantapam, chastiser of the enemies. So Sukadev Goswami was trying to pacify Maharaj Parikshit. Text 13. Hearing what had happened, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord of the universe, simply laughed. Then he again addressed the cowboys, showing them the way men act in this world. So purport, by laughing, Lord Krishna indicated to the cowherd boys that they need not to be angry at ritualistic Brahmins, but should understand that one who begs will often be refused. So one who begs, so sometimes you get something, sometimes you will get refused. That's the business of begging, Krishna says. Text 14. Lord Krishna said, tell the wives of the Brahmins that I have come here with Lord Shankarshan. They will certainly give you all the food you want, for they are most affectionate towards me, and indeed, with their intelligence, their intelligence reside in me alone. So, someone can read the purport now.
While physically the wives of the Brahmanas remained at home, within their minds they resided in the Supreme Lord Krishna because of intense affection for him. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the reason Lord Krishna did not have the cowherd boys tell the Brahmanas' wives he was hungry is that he knew this would severely distress these devoted ladies. Simply out of affection for Lord Krishna, however, the wives would be happy to give all the food requested of them. They would not heed their husbands' prohibitions, since they resided within the Lord through their transcendental intelligence.
So, within their minds resided the Supreme Lord. To reside in Krishna within your mind, what does it mean? It means to remember him. Their intelligence is also residing in Krishna. That means that they have bhakti. Their intelligence was fixed. It didn't go away from Krishna. So 15. The cowherd boys then went to the house of the Brahmins, where the Brahmins' wives were staying. There the boys saw those chaste ladies sitting, nicely decorated with fine ornaments, bowing down to the Brahmin ladies. The boys addressed them in all humility. So text 16. The cowherd boys said, obeisance to you, O wives of the learned Brahmins, kindly hear our words. We have been sent here by Lord Krishna, who is passing by not far from here. And he has come a long way with the cowherd boys and Lord Balaram tending the cows. Now he's hungry, so some food should be given for him and his companions. Someone can read Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's comment on verse 17.
Hearing Krishna's name, they began to faint in bliss. To bring them back to consciousness, the boys began to explain why they had come to their houses, beginning in a gentle way and ending boldly. Krishna and Balaram are not far off. Aduram, Seeing they had become alert on hearing this, the boys then thought of exciting them by mentioning that Krishna and Balaram wanted some food. Krishna and his friends are suffering from hunger.
So interesting, at first the wives didn't answer, like the Brahmins, they didn't answer. But the reason is different. The reason why they didn't answer immediately was that they were stunned by ecstasy. They could not speak. But the Brahmins, they were hard-hardened and they didn't answer. That was another question. So then we have text 18. The wives of the Brahmins were always eager to see Krishna, for their minds had been enchanted by the descriptions of him. Thus, as soon as they heard that he had come, they became very excited. Vishwanath says, the wives began criticizing their minds on hearing that Krishna was hungry. O you low mind, though you have heard that your beloved Krishna is suffering from hunger, why did you not wake up from fainting? That interesting. So they did not. That means they did not want ecstasy, but it's going to be because they feel ecstasy is in the way of their service. So they don't want it, but it comes. What to do? So taking along in large vessels the 4 kinds of food, full of fine tastes and aromas, all the ladies went forth to meet their beloved, just as rivers flow toward the sea. So purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the wives of the Brahmins experienced conjugal feelings toward Krishna, as if he were their paramour. Thus they could not be checked, and they rushed to see him. 20:21. Although their husbands, brothers, sons, and other relatives tried to forbid them from going, their hope of seeing Krishna, cultivated by extensive hearing of his transcendental qualities, won out. Along the river Yamuna, within a garden decorated with buds of Ashoka trees, they caught sight of him strolling along in the company of the cowherd boys and his elder brother Balaram. So, how did they get attraction for Krishna? They were Krishna's devotees. How did they knew about Krishna? How is that possible? Someone comment on that? How did they knew about Krishna?
Maharaj, I remember reading something like they would hear from the different people of Vrindavan who would come for selling milk and all. They would hear about Krishna from them and they developed their attraction by that.
Yes, they heard mainly from the Pulindas, the aborigines of Vrindavan. They were the fruit ladies who were coming and selling things. They culminated their attachment by chanting about his transcendental qualities, always remembering Krishna. So we can read Jiva Goswami's comment on this verse. Someone can read, please.
Yes, Maharaj. They were forbidden by their husbands, nearby or others nearby, as the case may be. They were forbidden from going. Others said, send the food through others, but do not go. Krishna is called Uttama Shloka, famous. since he accepted their food. They saw Krishna. The word Ashoka suggests that on attaining him, all sorrow, Shoka, vanished. He was playing Vicharantam, surrounded by friends. This indicates special beauty. Or they saw him even though he was surrounded by friends, since he was most conspicuous amongst them. He was with his elder brother. This indicates that his beauty was superior to all others' beauty, including that of Balram, since the word with indicates a secondary person. The wives are addressed simply as women to show the misfortune of their husbands.
Yes, we will. If someone can read also Sanatan Goswami's comment, because he mentions also about their husbands. So please read.
Yes, Maharaj.
Thank you.
The husbands tried to prevent them, fearing that the wives would reject them, first by trying to control them and then by using disrespectful words. The brothers tried to prevent them because of a greater affection. Then the sons tried to prevent them out of greater affection. Mothers are not mentioned as they would assist fathers instead of bandhubihi. However, there is no forbiddance of having such a bhava for the Lord. They had developed strong hopes or strong desire with a special bhava because of hearing for a long time about Krishna. Dirgha Shruta means, O Parikshit, you have heard scriptures for a long time. Their behavior is suitable for a person who has heard scriptures. Or, Parikshit, though you have heard scriptures for a long time, you have ever heard of such bhakti as theirs. Dhritashaya. Dhritashaya means they had fixed in their heart or had strong desire at all times with special bhavas. They were forbidden by their husbands nearby or others nearby, as the case may be. They were forbidden from going. The others said, send the food through others, but do not go. Krishna is called Uttama Shloka, famous, since he accepted their food. They saw Krishna. The word Ashoka suggests that on attaining him all sorrows, Shoka, vanished. He was playing Vicharantam, surrounded by friends. This indicates special beauty, or they saw him even though he was surrounded by friends, since he was most conspicuous among them. He was with his elder brother. This indicates that his beauty was superior to all others, beauty including that of Balarama, since the word with indicates a secondary person. The wives addressed simply as women to show the misfortune of their husbands. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you so much. So text 22. So, his complexion was dark blue and his garment golden. Wearing a peacock feather colored in minerals, sprigs of flower buds, and a garland of forest flowers and leaves, he was dressed just like a dramatic dancer. He rested one hand upon the shoulder of a friend, and with the other twirled a lotus. Lilies graced his ears, his hair hung down over his cheeks, and his lotus-like face was smiling. And now I will read 23. So this is a description of Krishna. The wives of the Brahmins ran, bringing all the food. So This is one of the special verses which we just read, describing the beauty of Krishna. So there are some special verses in the Bhagavatam describing Krishna's beauty. And I want to read a few verses, 2 other verses or 3 other verses which describe Krishna's beauty. And for this we'll go to the Bhagavatam, and there we will go. We go first to the 10th canto, chapter 14, verse 1. So can someone read the translation, please, of this verse?
Yes, Maharaj. Lord Brahma said, "My dear Lord, you are the only worshipable Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore I offer my humble obeisances and prayers just to please you. O son of the king of the cowherds, your transcendental body is dark blue like a new cloud. Your garment is brilliant like lightning, and the beauty of your face is enhanced by your gunja earrings and the peacock feather on your head. Wearing garlands of various forest flowers and leaves, and equipped with a herding stick, a buffalo horn, and a flute, you stand beautifully with a morsel of food in your hand."
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Then also, and that's the chapter you have recently read, the Venu Gita chapter, that's chapter 21, 15, 21, verse 5. That's also a famous verse. Someone can read this translation?
Wearing a peacock feather ornament upon his head, blue carnicara flowers on his ears, a yellow garment as brilliant as gold, and the Vajjayanti garland. Lord Krishna exhibited his transcendental form as the greatest of dancers as he entered the forest of Vrindavana, beautifying it with the marks of his footprints. He filled the holes of his flute with the nectar of his lips, and the cowherd birds sang his glories.
Thank you. That's this verse 22 that we read, and the 2 other verses. And there's one verse more that I want to read. And I will tell right after reading it why this, what's so special at these 4 verses. And the 4th verse is 3 to 23. Aubakiyam stanakala kutam shigram seya payatapya sadvi lebe gatim datu chitam tatam yam kamvadayalam sharanam vrachema. So Uddhav speaking to Vidura in the 3rd canto, 3 to 23. Alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he who granted the position of mother to a she-demon, Putan? Although she was unfaithful and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. Now these 4 verses, the verse in this chapter, 22, and then 10:14:1, 10:21:5, and 3:2:23. These are special verses describing the beauty of Krishna and also his mercy. And this verse, it is said that these 4 verses are said to have attracted Sukadev Goswami. Sukadev Goswami at his birth left home, but Srila Vyasadeva wanted him back in the ashram to speak the Bhagavatam. And he used a technique like when you have a cage and you have a canary bird inside, and the cage is open and the bird is out. How to get the bird back into the cage. So one technique is every day you put some seeds in the beginning a little far away from the cage, and the bird can't eat the seeds, and every day you put it a little closer to the cage, and the last day you put it into the cage, and then the bird goes into the cage to eat the seeds and you close it. So that's how to get a canary bird back into the cage. That I never tried it out, I only heard it. But Sukadev Goswami, well, Srila Vyasadeva wanted him back into the ashram and sent out his disciples, chanting verses from the Bhagavatam, describing directly Krishna. But since he was Atmaram, already liberated, he became not really attracted to hearing them. And every day they chanted these verses a little closer to the ashram. And finally, he got them in the ashram, and then he spoke to him the whole Bhagavatam, which he repeated here to Maharaj Pariksit. So this is those 4 verses who were attracting Sukadev Goswami. That now text 23. About sharing again. 23. Yeah. So can I first read the Sanskrit? Shyamam miranya paridim vanamalya bhara tatu pravala natavishamana vratam she Vinastya hastam itarena dunamamabhyam karnotpala lakapola mukhabhyahasam. Someone can read the translation, please.
His complexion was dark blue and his garment golden. Wearing a peacock feather, colored minerals, sprigs of flower buds, and a garland of forest flowers and leaves, he was dressed just like a dramatic dancer. He rested one hand upon the shoulder of a friend, and with the other twirled a lotus. Lilies graced his ears, his hair hung down over his cheeks, and his lotus-like face was smiling.
Thank you. Next 23. Prayashuta priyatamo dayakarna purer yasmin imachna manasastam adakshirandraya anta pravisya sushiram parirapyatapam prajnam yata bimatayo vicharuch narendra. Someone can read, please. Translation.
O ruler of men, for a long time those Brahmana ladies had heard about Krishna, their beloved, and his glories had become the constant ornaments of their ears. Indeed, their minds were always absorbed in him. Through the apertures of their eyes, they now forced him to enter within their hearts, and then they embraced him within for a long time. In this way, they finally gave up the pain of separation from him, just as sages give up the anxiety of false ego by embracing their innermost consciousness.
Thank you. So we will discuss now this verse 22 and 23 more in detail. So in essence, this verse says that all what we have to do is to be free from anxiety, To be free to anxiety is to embrace our innermost consciousness, which is Krishna. So these ladies understood this. In Krishna books, Srila Prabhupada explains a little more about this. So he writes, within themselves they began to embrace Krishna to their heart's content, and the distress of separation was mitigated immediately. They were just like great sages who by their advancement of knowledge merged into the existence of the Supreme. As the Supersoul living in everyone's heart, Lord Krishna could understand their minds. They had come to him despite all the protests of their relatives, fathers, husbands and brothers, and despite all the duties of the household affairs. They came just to see him, who was their life and soul. They were exactly following Krishna's instructions in the Bhagavad Gita. One should surrender to him, giving up all varieties of occupational and religious duties. He therefore began to speak to them, smiling very magnificently. It should be noted in this connection that when Krishna entered into the wives' hearts, and when they embraced him and felt transcendental bliss of being merged with him, the Supreme Lord did not lose his identity, nor did the individual wives lose theirs. The individuality of both the Lord and the wives remained, yet they felt oneness in existence. When a lover submits to his lover without any punch of personal consideration, that is called oneness. Lord Chaitanya has taught us this feeling of oneness in his sixth Shastaka. Krishna may act freely, doing whatever he likes, but the devotee should always be in oneness or in agreement with his desires. That oneness was exhibited by the wives of the Brahmins in their love for Krishna. So, that's the refers to the last verse of Shikshastakam. Slisyava padam itastumam, and so on. So the merging that the devotees desire is the merging in service. These wives of the Brahmins displayed perfect love of Godhead. So we will go back to verse 22 and read now the purport of Vishwanath Chakravarti. If someone can read that purport, please.
They saw Krishna wearing a yellow cloth, Hiranna Paridhi. He was decorated with a garland of forest flowers and leaves extending to his feet, with a peacock feather in his top knot, with tilaka and design of colored clay, with new leaves tucked in his ear and belt. He looked like a uh, theoretical artist, theoretical artist, to make known to them his own intentions by his gestures. He is described as having his left arm on the shoulder of a friend, and in his right hand he uh, twirled a play lotus. By this, by this he was telling them, with their love for him, that he had accepted their lotus hearts in his hand and would give them bliss. Or he was telling them, just see, my lotus heart is turning with bliss. You can conclude this by my actions. He had water lilies over his ears and curls of hair falling over his cheeks. He had a lotus smile on his face.
Thank you. Can someone also read Vishwanath's comment on 23?
The seers has become successful by hearing many times.
Hare Krishna. I was waiting for Narottam Vilas Prabhuji, but I think it's my turn then after him. Can I read?
Yes, you can.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Their ears has become successful by hearing many times about the excellent qualities of their beloved, and thus their minds became absorbed in him. Through the doors of their eyes, they made him enter and lie upon the lotus bed of their hearts, and embracing him spontaneously, Suchiram, they decreased their suffering. By that embrace, they fainted in bliss and became one with him. They became relieved of the suffering that arose from absence of his touch, just as the functions of ego embrace the sleeping consciousness, become one with it, and become free from all suffering.
Thank you. Now, in Ananda Vrindavan Champu, there is some more information we get from more insight from Kavikarna Purim. So, due to the absorption in thoughts of Krishna, they acted boldly, free from doubts and hesitation. Conquered by love, they lost control over their minds while tasting the mellow of their relationship with the Lord. Having taken completely control of their senses, Krishna entered their hearts, came outside, and again entered their hearts. So they are fully surrendered to Krishna, and they are having a good time. So with their eyes, they are seeing him, and with their hearts, with their eyes they are seeing him, with their hearts they are embracing him. So during the experience, the Jagyapatnis thought, how amazing, our beloved Shyamasundar is standing before us, and simultaneously standing in our hearts. In such a bewildered state, the ladies saw Krishna in their hearts when they closed their eyes. And upon opening their eyes, they saw their beloved before them. Dhruva Maharaj did not get that. He saw the Lord's inside, and then his meditation broke. And then he saw the Lord outside. That's different. So they got both, inside and outside, simultaneously. Although satisfied to see Krishna within their hearts, they moved closer to him upon opening their eyes, taking Krishna to the aperture of their lotus eyes. So aperture means the opening gap of the eyes. And so taking Krishna through the aperture of their lotus eyes, they embraced him within their hearts. Melting in rapturous joy, they relinquished all fears and anxiety. With their caper-like hands, these fortunate ladies, they offered the fragrant flowers out of affection to worship their beloved. Krishna enchanted the minds of the Brahmins' wives by saturating them with spiritual bliss, and he completely removed the painful fire of separation. So after hearing so much about Krishna, they got him and embraced him, and they got what they wanted. So now we go text 24. Lord Krishna, who witnesses the thoughts of all creatures, understood how those ladies had abandoned all worldly hopes and come there simply to see him. Thus he addresses them as follows with a smile upon his face. Then Vishwanath Bhakti Thakur says, seeing them there in that state, standing stunned with the plates of food in their hands, the witness of all people's intelligence began laughing and spoke. 25. So Krishna said, Svagatam vo Mahabhaga Asyatam Karavamakim Yona Tridriksaya Prapta Upapanam Idam Hiva. So the verse, Lord Krishna said, Welcome, O most fortunate ladies. Please sit down and make yourself comfortable. What can I do for you? You have come here to see me is most appropriate. Someone can read the purport, please.
Just as Sri Krishna welcomed the gopis who came to dance with him at night, he similarly welcomed the Brahmana's wife, whose pure love for him was proved by their overcoming many hindrances to see the Lord. That although these ladies had rejected their husband, not at all impropriate, since their husband had obviously tried to obstruct their loving service to Lord Krishna.
Thank you. So, if the husband does not allow you to go to Krishna, then it seems you are allowed not to listen to the husband. What Krishna is saying here is the same thing he said to the gopis when they came to meet him in Rasa Lila. But he also approved it here, that someone can read the comment of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur? Please.
Krishna addressed the wives of the Brahmanas who were endowed with the greatest prema in a similar manner that he addressed the gopis who came for the rasa dance. Your coming is all glorious, Swagatam, because Yadi, desiring to see me and overcoming all obstacles, you have attained me, or you came here. As I cannot repay you in any way, what can I do? I am simply your debtor. You are the more fortunate than I am, Mahabhaga. You should stay here for some time in order to see me.
Thank you. On text 26. Certainly, expert personalities who can see their own true interest render unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service directly unto me, for I am most dear to the soul. That someone can read the purport, please.
The Supreme Lord in the Brahmana's wife that not only they but all people who recognize their true self-interest take to the spiritual process of loving service to the Lord. Lord Krishna is Atma-Priya, the real object of love for everyone. Although each individual has his own taste and freedom, ultimately every living being is a spiritual spark of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, everyone's primary loving attraction is constitutionally meant for Lord Krishna, Lord Sri Krishna. Loving service to the Lord should be ahetaki, without personal motive, and abjavahita, unobstructed by mental speculation, selfish desire for any quirk of time and circumstance.
So, at the end of this purport, this Avyayita is mentioned. 4 kinds of obstacles for us to attain Nishta in devotional service. This we will start discussing after the break. There's a lot to say about this point, that obstacles to Nishta. So we will now have a break till 5:15. It's nearly 5 o'clock. 17:15 we resume. Thank you. Hare Krishna. See you soon.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Hare Krishna, we will continue and read again verse 26. This will be the last verse that we will discuss today, and we will be halfway the chapter. And tomorrow we will probably cover the remaining verses. Let's see. So 26, Krishna is speaking. Nam vadamaya kurvanti kusala svarta darshina ahaituki amvyavaitam bhaktimatma priyata. Certain expert personalities who can see their own true interest render unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service directly unto me, for I am most dear to the soul. So this correspondence with this this correspondence with the verse 126. Ahaituki apatiyata. Here it's amvyahaita. Amvyahaita, obstructed by four things. This is also mentioned here in the purport at the end. Obstructed by mental speculation, selfish desire, a quirk of time, and circumstance. So these things will stop us of having nishta. When we come to the level of nishta, then our service is uninterrupted, no interruption. It is without stop. So mental speculation is the first. It means that we are not accepting Krishna as he is, and we are absorbed in our own dream world. Selfish desire, then there is selfish desire. This is based on the body. Ahaituki means without selfish desire. And then there is time. I cannot finish my rounds today. It's too late. It's too late. I cannot go to the temple or do this or that, or I cannot do this late evening program. Then the circumstance could be anything. I'm old, I need sleep, so many things. Other obstacles are described by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in more detail in Madhurya Kanambini. He mentions in inter alia a few: sleep, bad habits, material desires, indifference, distractions. So these are obstacles to nishta, to attain loving devotional service. As long as we have these obstacles, we cannot run to Krishna like the wives of the Brahmins that Nishtha is the first level of pure devotional service. Then our heart is pure. It's liberation. Of course, the Jahyapatnis were beyond that level. You can be a pure devotee before Nishtha if you have a haituki. If you are without personal motive, then you can also be a pure devotee before Nishtha. But a haituki is required. The topmost goal is to develop love for Krishna. Then you are also a pure devotee. From Nishtha onwards, you are completely absorbed in devotional service with body, minds, and words. So, can someone read the purport of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on 26, which is now on the screen? Please, yeah.
Though the wives were full of the highest prema, fulfilling their desires, now will not nourish the rasa, and without nourishment of the rasa, the pastimes will not be attractive. Thus, though Krishna was moved and controlled by their prema, when he began to respond to their love, which arose when they saw him, there was a sudden appearance of his Aishwarya, showing himself as God, by the agency of the Lila Shakti, which caused them to return to their homes. This Aishwarya does not usually appear in the presence of those immersed in prema, it made its appearance for increasing their prema through separation and increasing longing in separation for the perfection of the pastimes. Bringing the Lord's rati under control, it produced reasoning. Thus the Lord speaks in two verses. According to the mood of Aishwarya, not only you have become attached to me, but other persons as well have developed affection for me. Who are they? Those who are clever, Kushalaha. Those who are clever look after their own welfare, Swarta Darshinaha. They had devotion which was without personal motives, Ahajati, without any contaminating obstructions, Avyavahita, just as the one has affection for one's own body and husband and other things.
Thank you so much. So there are three reasons why the Jahyapatnis had no physical relationship with Krishna. The first is to keep the pastime perfect. Otherwise it would be rasabhas. And also to increase their eagerness of separation. To increase their love for Krishna. That's the third reason. So Jiva Goswami also comments on this verse. So it's a short one. Can someone read this, please?
He avoids mentioning their desire to see and associate with him. Adha means directly. Thus, the meaning is they perform pure bhakti to me, since it is without material motive. Ahaituki. They perform bhakti abundantly, yatha, to me, who am dearer than the Atma, since I am Paramatma. Since I am constantly with you as Paramatma, it is not necessary to be anxious for my direct association.
So, good. This is verse 26. We will continue tomorrow with 27. 27. Because Krishna will tell them to go back home and to assist their husbands. And then they will object. They don't want to go back home for specific reasons. That we will discuss tomorrow. So, any questions, comments, please?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Mother Emma Gopi.
Maharaj, can you kindly help me understand the word clever in this context? Clever for their spiritual, usually clever is not considered like to be clever and devotionally. How do we put it together, Maharaj? Thank you.
It depends on the context. Where did you find this word clever in the commentaries? Yeah, you have to unmute.
Narottam Vilas Prabhu was just reading the purport just before the idea of Ahetuki. There's another class of people also, they're clever for their own spiritual upliftment.
From the purport?
I think it's from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura's purport. Not only you have become attached to me, but there are other persons as well developed affection for me. Who are they? Those who are clever. Those who are clever look after their own welfare. Swartha darshinaha.
Yeah. Yes. So, what I understand here is that they have become attached to Krishna by hearing about him, but there are others who understand their self-interest and who are clever because they understand that they can only get liberation from this material world, this cycle of birth and death, if they are taking shelter of Krishna. So those who are clever look at their own welfare. Our welfare is to surrender to Krishna in unmotivated devotional service. So different ways to come to Krishna. That's the way to Jnana more, the real Jnani. That's Bhauna Jnanamante Jnanamama Papachite Vaste Sarvamiti Samatma Sudurlava. After many, many births, is such a Jnani who wants to know the absolute truth, surrenders to the Lord. He has understood. And Krishna says such a Jnani is very dear to me. So we are those who are clever, that if we understand our self-interest, the interest of the soul, then we surrender to Krishna. Does that clarify, Mother Amaru?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you.
Thank you. Srinivas Gopal Prabhu. Please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Thank you.
Maharaj, this Brahmana's wives, they were not residing far away from the place where Krishna resides. It is said that, the fruit sellers or milkman, somebody has described about the pastimes of Lord Krishna, then they got attachment. That means the whole Vraj Mandal, it is said Braj. People are also not aware about Krishna, the Brajvasis.
I understood that they were living near to the outskirts of Mathura.
Yeah.
But near to one of the 12 forests of Vrindavan, probably Mavan, one of the 12 forests. So they were living at the outskirts, and these Pulindas, they came there. So yes, it's Krishna's mercy that they associated with these Pulindas and got this ecstatic love for Krishna. Whether that means that, everyone in Vrindavan, all Vrajavasis, they love Krishna. But we know sometimes there are also demons in Vrindavan. But in general, yes, the Vrajavasis, they have all pure love for Krishna. But we see these ritualistic Brahmins, they were not on that level. But by association with their wives now, they have become pure devotees. They will understand their mistake. That's what I could say on it. Is that okay?
Maharaj, it is like Vrindavan means like whole 12 ones. So all 12 one people are aware about Krishna, or else it was simply forest it was.
Well, Vrindavan means the 12 forests of Vrindavan.
People were residing in all the one?
Please?
In all the one, like Vrindavan, Krishna was residing. What about the other ones, like when we do Brajamandal Parikrama? It's like very big.
Well, Krishna was coming in all this forest for herding the cows. That's how he came in all these forests. In the beginning they were at Gokul and then at Nandagram, but they went out for Nandagram in all this forest every day. So they came in all these forests, and that's how, the whole Vrajamandal is connected with Krishna's pastime. Therefore it's so ecstatic to go on Parikram 1 month with Lokanath Maharaj to the whole Vrajamandal Parikram. It's such a heart-changing experience. I did it 3 times, 99, 2000 and 2001. And it's a whole blissful month. And then you remember all these places where Krishna had his pastimes. Then later you read Krishna book and you remember the place where it happened. And it's so beautiful. So Krishna was in the whole Vrajamandal herding cows. And we hear about these different forests in the past times. Does that help?
So in Vrindavan, people that the pastimes which has been described, he killed the different demons when demons entered into the Vrindavan. So it's like all the other parts of the Vrindavan, people were not very much affectionate to Krishna because they don't know about Krishna's glories or his supremacy.
Well, my understanding, most were devotees of Krishna, because these Pulindas were everywhere and they all got to know Krishna and they heard about Krishna, they became attracted to Krishna. Yes. But of course there were also demons, that not all of them.
And Maharaj, one more question.
Yeah.
This Pulindas means what? When we read in Bhagavatam, other places, there's Pulindas, Pulkasas, Andhras. These people are from that place? They went to Vrindavan?
No. The Pulindas are aborigines. They are the original residents of Vrindavan. Because later, the cowherd boys, they moved from Gokul to Nandagam and so on. But those who were there before them were the aborigines, the original residents of Vrindavan, and they were forest people. They were very simple and living from all the fruits and all what they got from the forest, honey, all kinds of forest fruits, and we see that in Krishna's Damodar pastime, the fruit vendor came, the women with offering fruits to Krishna, and Krishna came to barter with some grains in his hand. That these are also all Pulingas. And it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, because they were wandering through all this forest, they saw Krishna at different places in the Vrajamandala. And also the pastimes with the gopis and so on, they had also interactions with them, and they knew that when Krishna embraced the gopis, from the gopis' breast some kurkum would fall on the ground. And they would collect that kurkum and put that on their body, and they would feel ecstatic. That this Pulindas. Very interesting. Yeah.
One more question, Maharaj.
Yes.
Maharaj, that in Ras Leela, the gopis who are participated, it's not from the one place. They are all over parts of India, other parts. So how it is like they allowed, like Shiva could not enter into that, and Narada could not enter into that, Lakshmi Devi was not able to come. Then how these other parts of the place they can enter into the Vraj Mandal or enter into Ras Leela?
I don't know about that. I didn't read that in Prabhupada's books. So it's not in Prabhupada's books. I cannot comment on that. Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Something else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Nursing Anita.
Maharaj, can I comment on this topic?
Yeah, sure.
Maharaj, these Brahmanas' wives, they used to live in Mathura road. They was not in Vrindavan.
Yeah.
And from Vrindavan, they used to go to Mathura for selling their milk product. That's why that Brahmana's wife, they heard about Krishna from them.
Mm-hmm.
And this custom took place in Bhatrul, where Krishna Balaram went to meet with Kamsa, and he took bath at Jamuna, and Okra take darshan the Vaikuntha. That is not far from Bhatrul. That is approximately 500 meters.
Yeah.
This is on the way to Mathura route, Maharaj. And 2.5 kilometers far away from Vrindavan.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you for these details.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Maharaj?
Yes?
Maharaj, you were reading about this stage of Nishtha in context of text 26. Maharaj, where were you reading from? What is the reference?
That I rephrased more or less what Bhujan Prabhu said, but also I took a few points of Madhurya Kanambini also. That's also explained there in detail. If you want to know more about that, you can read Madhurya Kanambini, that about Anartha Nivritti and Nishtha, and also you can read Harinam Chintamani. There are also all the obstacles up to enter Nishtha are described there. That it's important information because it helps us to understand our own level. That so Nishtha is a high level. Nishtha is the level of liberation. Brahma Bhutta Pashanatmana Shostina Kangsti Samsavesha Bhushamat Bhaktim Lavate Param. It is the level of the realized Madhyam Adhikar. Not one who acts as a Madhyam Adhikar, but who has the realization of a Madhyam Adhikar. That Srila Prabhupada told us, try in this life to come to the of Nishtha. become a Madhyamadikar. If you become a Madhyamadikar, you do not take birth again in this material world. You may take birth in Krishna's pastimes, but you don't take birth anymore. So that, if we can attain that, of course, yes, but it's not if someone is a Kanishta that you cannot learn from a Kanishta, because it's a broad stage. You have the new Bhakta, who enters Anartha Nivritti after 3, 4, 5 years. He enters Anartha Nivritti. He's a Kanishta. But then the one who is nearly liberated, only some subtle things to attain Nishta, nearly Nishta, is also a Kanishta. But the last one may have 30 years of practice or more. So that has to be understood. This Kanishta platform is a broad platform. And once you become Madhyamadikar, then you don't take birth anymore. But of course, we have to go beyond Nishta. But then after Nishta, it goes very quick, like Sukadev Goswami, when he came out of the womb. Krishna had promised him, you will not be attracted, you will be liberated. So he was liberated from birth, but he was not yet in his pastimes at the higher level. He was hearing the Bhagavad and became attracted, because he was Atmaram. And then it went very quick, very quick. So after that, it's like iron to magnet. Then you get Ruchi or Sakti, Bhava, and quickly Prema. It's going quickly, but before you get there, it's a whole thing. But it's good to study that very deeply, because if we preach, especially to devotees, it's important that devotees understand that devotional service is a process from Shraddha to Prema. And we need to know where we are. And all the symptoms are there. It's very scientific. And therefore, I mentioned a few of the obstacles here, but it's detailed and described in Harinam Chintamani. It will be discussed in terms of Seva Apparat, and Nam Apparat, obstacles, and Ashad Drishti, the taste for dead things in this material world, and not for Krishna. And you find that also in the Madhurya Kadambini, different kinds of obstacles. It's all detailed there, all the kind of categories and what you can do about it. So it's important that we know this, especially I think on the Bhaktivedanta level. We need to know these things. So study Madhurya Kadambini and Harinam Chintamani. That's my little advice for what it is worth. Any other questions, please? I don't know if that answers.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, so.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
If I may, taking from what you already said, my previous understanding was like, unless and until a person reaches prema, there is no question he is going back to Godhead, in the sense, and back home means the place where Krishna is having his pastimes in this material world. So this was like, so how do we harmonize this, that like after Nishta, it's like you don't take birth, like, I mean, not taking birth means what? Like you do take birth somewhere, either in the material world or in the spiritual world. So
yeah,
that the journey, as far as you are talking about, far less. It's far quicker, as I understand from you are saying. But still, like from Nishtha till Asakti, we are still in the stage of sadhana. And like unless and until we have bhava, so then
Yeah, right.
basic thumb rule definition of sadhana bhakti, that the target of sadhana bhakti is bhava. And so we understand after bhava, like it takes over and gradually we move on to prema, because that is not the sadhana stage anymore. So how do we reconcile these two things?
Yeah, that will all be explained in next cantos, later cantos of this 10th canto. Like the point you say is sadhana bhakti, but mostly after Nishtha it becomes Raganuga sadhana bhakti. But that goes quite quick compared to what was before. But if you are in that stage, because we know that in Ruchi Shakti, we have still some slight identification with the body.
Yes.
So we are not yet 100% pure. We are nearly pure. But that was the question to Prabhupada. Someone asked to Srila Prabhupada, if someone is 90% pure, will Krishna accept him? And Srila Prabhupada said yes. Then someone asked, and 85% pure, and Srila Prabhupada said yes, but he would not go lower than 80%. Because, and of course, we know in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, Sutta Goswami summarizes the whole process, and he says, Nastabe Zabhati Sunityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavatutana Avutamaskri Bhakti. Yeah.
Bhavati Naishtiki.
Yeah, Nastabe Zabhati Sunityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavatutamaskri Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By rendering service to the pure devotee and by hearing daily the Bhagavatam, all that is troublance to the heart, Nastrapayesis, nearly destroyed. What does that
almost
nearly means? It means that the influence of the mode of passion and goodness is passion and ignorance is gone. One comes to goodness, and so one is nearly pure. But of course, this is for devotees. We are not speaking about Jnanis or all the other
of course.
path of bhakti. So, but we want to become pure devotees, and we are in that process. Like, what were cases that will be discussed later in this Bhagavatam? And the first is the Munichari Gopis, who were sages in the Dandakaranya forest, and Lord Ram was visiting them during his exile. And they were practically pure, not completely, but they had no lust anymore of these things. So they wanted a conjugal relationship with Lord Ram, and Lord Ram said, no, it's not possible. Eka Patni, one wife, Sita. And at the end of Dvapara Yuga, I will come back, and then you can, as Krishna, then you can have that relationship. And then they all took birth in the wombs of gopis, Nitya Siddha gopis. They took birth, and they were trained up further.
Yes.
So, I leave out all further details because a lot to say about this. But this is the principle, how it works. But interesting is that because we take birth in Krishna's pastime, and by the Nitya Siddhas we are further perfected. That's already considered a spiritual birth.
Yes, of course.
Of
course, yes. But post-prema stages.
But we may not forget that we are now part of Krishna's, of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, which is also the pastime of Lord Chaitanya, which is still going on. We are very fortunate also that, anyway, that's a side point. Does that
Thank you, Maharaj.
small question? Yeah?
Thank you, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. Something else? Good. Then we see each other tomorrow. We will see how long it goes tomorrow, if we will finish the chapter or not. That otherwise we have still Friday to finish. We'll see tomorrow. Thank you very much. And Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada.
His Holiness Bhakti Prabhu Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Bol.